So the first thing I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the old Festival of Samhain became the Halloween performance or the Halloween holiday that it's become today. So the ancient Festival of Samhain, it was a festival in Ireland that marked the end of the harvest season and the onset of winter. It was a time when the boundaries thinned between the worlds of the living and the world of the dead, allowing spirits to roam the earth. People lit bonfires, donned masks, offered food to appease the spirits, and thanked the gods for a good harvest. With the arrival of Christianity in the 8th century, the church sought to subsume some pagan festivals into the Christian celebrations, and Pope Gregory designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, a day to honor all the saints and martyrs. The evening before this feast, October 31st, became known as All Hallows' Eve, a time for reflection and remembrance. As All Hallows' Eve spread across Europe, it absorbed various local customs, including the customs of Ireland and Scotland, where the people still lit bonfires and wore costumes. Over the time, those practices blended into the new holiday. When Irish immigrants began arriving in America in the 19th century, they brought their traditions with them. In the New World, pumpkins, which were plentiful and much easier to carve, replaced the turnips they used to carve into jack-o'-lanterns, and now we have the pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns that we all know today. By the early 20th century, Halloween began to shift from a night of solemn and somber reflection to one of fun and community celebration. The popular practice of children trick-or-treating evolved from a blend of old customs of offering the food to the spirits and the old church tradition of begging for soul cakes on those nights. Costume parties and parades became normal, creating a vibrant holiday filled with creativity, spookiness, and a little bit of laughter. And so, from its ancient roots in the Festival of Samhain, Halloween evolved into the holiday we know today, a night when the past mingles with the present, allowing people to embrace both the supernatural and the playful spirit of the season. Today, as children don their costumes and wander the streets collecting candy, they partake in a rich tapestry of traditions that have been woven together over centuries, forever honoring the mysteries of Halloween night. Thank you. Something that is often associated with Samhain and the Irish celebrations are the fairies. Now, where did the fairies come from? Well, according to the Irish Celtic religion, the old gods were called the Tuatha De Danann, the people of the goddess. They were a supernatural race skilled in magic and warfare. They came from the skies and brought with them the advanced knowledge of art, craft, and healing. They're often considered to be the gods or divine beings that the ancient Celts worshipped in Ireland and were closely associated with the land and the natural cycles of its workings. After they arrived in Ireland, they defeated the older, darker gods, the Fomorians, and brought peace to Ireland up until a people called the Milesians from northwest Spain and Portugal arrived. They defeated the Tuatha in battle, took control of the land, and tasked a poet named Amergin to divide the land between the old gods and the new. He decided that all of the land above ground would belong to the Irish, and all of the land below ground, below the hills and the mounds, would belong to the Tuatha De Danann. Thus, they became known as the people of the mounds, or the Aes She. The word there, she, is the Irish word now for fairies. And after their demotion to being just fairies instead of gods, they still retain some of their supernatural powers, becoming guardians of nature and the spirits of the land. Now our folklore depicts them as being enchanting, capricious beings capable of both helping and hindering humanity. And playing the flute. So we're going to play a couple of tunes for you. We're calling it the King of the Fairies set. All right. So as we're playing this next one, we're going to be playing a song about banshees next. Now, what is a banshee? A banshee is a figure from Irish folklore, often described as a female spirit or ghost who is said to herald the death of a family member by wailing or shrieking. The word banshee comes from the Irish words ban-she, meaning woman of the fairies. So a lot of scholars think that the banshee is a representation of the old goddess the Morrigan, who was a goddess of war and death and fate. And she often predicted the deaths of Irish heroes, and that legend or that aspect lives on in the aspect of the banshee, who was said to predict the death of family members. As the stories usually go, if you hear her wailing, someone in your family is going to die soon. But if you see her yourself, then your time is not long. So that was a set that started with a song called the Black Cat Jig. And black cats and ravens are often associated with witches. We'll get to witches in a minute. But the next song is about the other one of those animal pairs, the ravens. Or in this case, they're called corbies. This is a song called Twa Corbies. It's in Scots, so a bit of it might be a little tough to understand. The gist of the song is that two ravens are talking to each other while they're eating a dead knight in a field after a battle, and talking about how nobody's going to miss him. His dog's already gone hunting. His hawk's already abandoned him. His girlfriend's gotten somebody else, so nobody's looking for him. They can have a nice leisurely dinner. So we actually have more songs about witches in this particular show than we've had about any other particular subject. Mindy likes that fact. So the common image of the witch with the pointy hat and the cats and the cauldrons and the broomstick, do you all know where that came from? Why we portray witches that way? It's not because of Shakespeare. It's actually older than Shakespeare. Back in the Middle Ages, men used to go out into the fields and labor and toil and gather the wheat and the harvest and everything like that. And the women would stay home, and one of the things that the women in the village would often do is brew beer. Thank God. Yes, thank God for that. But when they went to the market to sell the beer that they brewed, they would often wear a tall, pointy black hat so they would stand out in the marketplace and people would know where to go for the beer. They would be able to look for them and find them in a crowd. Fair enough, yeah. Unfortunately, she didn't bring her own home brew at the moment. The twig broomstick that we often associate with witches is actually taken from the practice of an ale stake. When a batch of beer was ready to be tasted by the authorities in charge to make sure that it was worthy of being sold, this is a custom especially in Germany. They have very high standards for their beer, even going back several hundred years. The woman would put out her ale stake, which looked like an old twig broomstick, to let the authorities know that they were welcome to come and taste it and make sure that it was good enough to be sold in the market. They would keep cats to chase away the rats to keep them out of the wheat and the barley for the brewing process. And the cauldron is what they used to brew beer in. Now, the reason that they've been portrayed as evil and, bewitching children is because the menfolk found out that there was money to be made in the trade of brewing beer and decided they wanted to take a piece of that, and they gradually pushed the women out of that market space. And that's why witches are portrayed the way they are and are portrayed as being a corrupting influence. So this next song is another one that's in Scots, so feel free to sing along. It's called Alison Cross. I know that my explanation about how witches weren't necessarily ugly and evil just happened, but this one's about an ugly, evil witch who bewitched a man. The idea behind this song is that she was... it's from the point of view of a man that this witch is trying to... essentially court or woo. She's in love with this man and is trying to give him every gift she can think of to get him to fall in love with her, and he's not having any of it. And so she turns him into, I'm going to go with a newt. It's never specified, so we're going to say that she turns him into a newt, and then the queen of the fairies comes and rescues him. Eventually, yes, when the queen of the fairies came and rescued him. I got better. Yes, thank you. I have lost control of the situation. It was going to happen eventually.